Okay, welcome to Continue Freedom. As people are starting to come on, I'll just jibber jabber here for a minute. I want to thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for everybody that's been coming back. The past few live streams have been doing really well, and that's thanks to you guys. I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, go ahead, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell and the like button, and leave some comments below. I've got a question for everybody here shortly that I'm going to ask, and I can't wait to get your all's input on it. I really can't wait. So, as folks are coming on here, hit me up in the comment section where you're from, where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you guys. Love to know where my audience is. It's this is going to be a good one. We got a whole lot of great stuff to talk about tonight. I'm going to give you a disclaimer too. Don't download DeepSeek. If you've heard about this new Chinese AI, I've been hearing some really wild stuff coming out about it. So stay away from DeepSeek. Whatever you do, stay away from DeepSeek. All right. So the first thing that we're going to get into, this is actually a pretty fun story. Donald Trump is, hang on, having a little situation here with my Rumble feed. Let me check that out. This is what happens when you go live. It's just what happens. Well, I guess it's working. I don't know. Oh, yeah, there it went. Okay, my Rumble feed was all messed up. All right, I think we're good now. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about, sorry for that little intermission there, but Nick Sorter, he posted about, by Donald Trump. Donald Trump had a speech today, and he was talking about getting rid of the income tax. Now, I'm going to get into, I know some people get on me because I don't get straight into the headline, but I want to give you guys a little bit of additional information. Plus, I'm waiting for folks to come on, some more folks to come on to the live stream. So be patient with me here. But ending the income tax.
So it's relatively.
Whoa, hang on. Listen to this. This is a great little 1-minute segment. You all are really going to enjoy it. Watch this. And we're going to talk about it. Oh, come on, X. Boy, everything's falling apart tonight. Rumble feed's not working. X isn't working. Okay, give me just a minute here. Goodness gracious.
America's going to be.
There it went. Here, let's try it now.
Very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887. And this commission had one function, what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887. And what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money, and that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
Yeah. They're using noise isolation so you couldn't hear all the applause. But yeah, absolutely. 1913. 1913 is when everything started to really go down the tubes. And I'm about to sneeze here. But yeah, everything went down the tubes in 1913. There it went. Excuse me. With Woodrow Wilson and Company. That's when we got our income tax and we got the Federal Reserve, all the horrible things that have gone on since then. And we had income tax, yes, before that, but it was briefly during the Civil War. And what happened? Lincoln put it in place, and then he took it out because he said, all right, we're no longer in war. And people love to make this comment, and it's very true, that we fought a war with the largest, most powerful nation in the world over a 2% tax on tea. Now, there was more to it than that, but they were taxing us on tea, and we had a revolution over that. And so some people feel the same way now, myself included, often with the oligarchs, we can call them that, but them being the only ones that can navigate this ridiculous tax system that we have, that essentially makes us violate our Fifth Amendment rights. And so the history went from 1913, once they got their foot in the door, 1916, the estate tax, the gift tax in 1924, 1932 was the gas tax, 1937 was the Social Security tax. Today we're paying $1, and I'm going to give some very real all-American examples here. In right now we pay $1.01 per pack of cigarettes federally. And if you live in New York, you pay $5.35 per pack. So I recommend you move, but you can't move out of the country necessarily, because where else are you going to go? What's better than America? So if the state wants to tax you high, fine, because you can move states. But we're $13.50 per proof gallon of spirits, $1 to $3 per gallon of wine. And we're taxed $18 per 31-gallon barrel of beer. Why do I bring up tobacco and alcohol? Well, because we fought the Whiskey Rebellion in 1791 because of a tax on alcohol. And when you look at it historically, you realize that we are this is the slow boil of the frog. This is really where we are. We've been slowly boiled in this pot, and they keep taking more and more and more. And it's not a revenue problem. It's a budgeting problem. It's an expenditures problem. And it's politicians in general, but mainly progressives, that really just want more of our money so that they can turn around and say that they will give it to us in a way that benefits us better than we could have done it ourselves. That's their argument. That's the whole argument around taxation. I'm a taxation is theft kind of person. So yeah, this is what they've done. And if you think about it, you're taxed on an item. You're taxed when you buy that item. Well, the items themselves are taxed by the businesses pay taxes on them. You're taxed when you buy the item. You're taxed for the road you use to take them home, and you're taxed on the vehicle that you're driving to take them home, to the home where you're taxed to live in, and you're taxed on the fridge that you put the items in. And when you die, they take half the property that you stored in the house that you were taxed on your whole life. It's gotten out of control. How many times can we tax the same dollar over and over again? So when I look at it, I think, yeah, okay, if there's a sales tax of some sort, a reasonable sales tax, I don't have to buy that particular thing. Tax me when I buy it, fine, because I can choose not to buy it. But just to take it out willy-nilly, yeah, taxation is theft. I'm fully on board with that. And now we have to remember too, though, this is a constitutional amendment. So Trump's not going to do this on his own, but if he's smart about it and he lobbies appropriately, this is something that would be overwhelmingly popular with the American people. Overwhelmingly popular. I mean, everybody hates having taxes taken out. Now, there's going to be a lot of rich progressives that are going to argue this and say, oh, no, how dare you? It's going to cause mass chaos and this, that, and the other. Okay, whatever. That's lunacy if you ask me. They care more about their entitlements than they do about their own money. I just care more about having power over my own dollar. That's what I care about. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, this is the big item. I told you I'd get to it quick. So Trump, this is kind of wild here, but Trump to ban trans people in the U.S. Armed Forces and DEI programs in a new executive order, a report says. So President Donald Trump will be signing executive orders on Monday that ban transgender individuals from the military, as well as eliminating all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs from the armed forces in the United States. Trump revoked a Biden-era order that allowed transgender individuals to serve in the U.S. Armed Forces. The executive order will establish pronoun usage as well as policy surrounding gender and will prohibit those who identify as transgender from joining the military, citing mental health issues as well as physical abilities, according to the New York Post. Unit cohesion requires high levels of integrity and stability among service members. A draft of the order reads: the Department of Defense will be directed to implement the policy after Trump signs the order. Newly confirmed Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has vowed to remove woke policies in the Pentagon and the military, which I am absolutely on board with. And as you would guess, the left is kind of freaking out about this. I mean, they're none too happy about it. And they think that this is an attack on trans people. But if you're a veteran, I've got some folks on now. If you're a veteran out there, I want to know your thoughts on this. I am one myself, and I am wholeheartedly against transgender people in the military, and not because I have any personal issue with transgender people, but because of what comes with a transgender person, the difficulties that come with a transgender person. And this is, transgender, it's gender dysphoria. And for those of you that don't know, the DSM-5 in 2013 is when it was originally added in the DSM-3 in 1980, and it was gender identity disorder, and then it was added to the DSM-5 in 2013. They changed the name basically, but it's essentially the same thing. And look at the military disqualifiers. And I used to be in recruiting. When I was in active duty, I was a recruiting guy, and I did that I was a recruiting company commander. And the standards change on a fairly regular basis. It's all based on supply and demand, right? How many soldiers do we need? How many people basically how many people do we need? What is our market share? And what standards do we need to change in order to meet our mission? Right? It was fairly simple. And so things like neck tattoos and more or less superficial things, sometimes they were allowed, sometimes they weren't. But with this comes some very, very serious things. And these are generally the non-negotiables. Alteration of personality. This is coming from the most recent list that I could find, and I'm sure that folks in the military have got some more recent lists, but alteration of personality. There's certain, let's call them anatomical things with your urethra. I won't get into the specifics about it, but hermaphroditism is a military disqualifier. Undescended testicles, amputation of certain appendages, let's just say that. Personality, conduct, or behavior disorders, where it is evident by history, interview, or psychological testing that the degree of immaturity, instability, personality inadequacy, impulsiveness, or dependency will seriously interfere with the adjustment of the Army, as demonstrated by a repeated inability to maintain reasonable adjustment in school, with employers and fellow workers, and with other social groups. So these are talking about, behavioral health problems. So I've given you anatomical things that a lot of those, and the reason I mentioned those anatomical things is because they come with transgender surgery, with transition. Personality issues. This is something gender dysphoria is something out of the DSM. We know that this is a mental health problem. It has always been treated as such, and only recently been something that the left wants to enable. Anxiety. So anxiety is one that you might not think would be associated with that, but as posted by the Yale School of Public Health between 2005 and 2015, for 2,679 individuals in the Swedish population who had received a diagnosis of gender incongruence, which is their way, I guess, of saying gender dysphoria. I'm not a doctor. But the study found that transgender individuals who had received a diagnosis of gender incongruence were 6 times more likely to have a mood or anxiety disorder than the general population. 3 times as likely to be prescribed antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, more than 6 times as likely to attempt suicide, resulting in hospitalization. And so this is why we have medical screenings in the first place, because you can't be dealing with these severe mental health problems, with these severe physical, anatomical problems that come as a result of gender transition surgeries, when you are downrange, when you are in the middle of nowhere, when you are in some outpost in Afghanistan. That doesn't make you a combat multiplier, that makes you a liability. And so you're not dealing with one individual's life, which is how people look at this. They look at, you have to, support, and you have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Affirm that person's identity. They only care about that one individual, but the military is, if anything, a team environment where you are supposed to be able to take care of the person to your left and right, not be in the case of someone who has gone through some sort of gender transition, a permanent medical case, a permanent patient that requires constant care, or a person who is known by the science, by the facts, by the studies, to have a propensity for suicidal problems, suicidal tendencies. You are putting the other soldiers at risk. That's why I am opposed to it. So if you want to live your life like that in America, you most certainly can. And I will tell you that I hope that you find the help that you need, and you're able to, listen to some of these stories of the folks that have detransitioned. But that's not my life. I can show you the data, and I can tell you, what that data says. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the military, that is something that I know. This is another reason where I have beef with women on the front lines, because it's just a different scenario for them, women in combat arms. And so transgender people, that just, it elevates the problems, the complexities to a whole new level. And if it is a distraction from fighting the war, fulfilling the mission, then it should not be allowed, which is why they have all of those things that I told you before. And there's literally thousands of markers that they hit, thousands of markers when it comes to whether or not a person should or should not be allowed to join the military, which is why so few people can. We're not going to allow somebody who's obese to join the military, but we will allow someone who has carved up their bodies in ways that are difficult to manage, to put it that way. I'm trying to be as gentle with it as I possibly can. And we know that this is a mental health issue because here's another example. 15% of women in federal prisons are men who say that they are transgender. This is something that's been reported widely for the past year or so, couple of years, that this, allowing someone to say, "Oh, I'm a woman in a man's body." They put them in a women's prison, and women start getting pregnant. There start being, sexual crimes that are being conducted inside of the prison. So President Donald Trump reversed previous orders that required federal prisons to put men who say they are women into women's prisons. So again, Donald Trump coming to the rescue of the people who are in prison. And yeah, got it. They're serving their time. They probably did some bad things, but it doesn't mean that they need to be subjected to this. This affects some 1,500 male prisoners in federal prisons who identify as women. In fact, 15% of women in prisons are actually males who say they are transgender. This is from the Post-Millennial. There are about 152,000 federal prisoners in the U.S., and about 144,000 are male. The New York Times notes that 750 of those prisoners are women who claim to be men. However, most women who claim to be men do not opt to be housed among male inmates. Prisoners who say that they are opposite sex are 10 times as likely to report being sexually victimized as other prisoners, the Times notes. The guidance from the executive branch also put a stop to federal funding of sex change surgeries and drugs for those male inmates who claim to be transgender. This includes those detained illegal immigrants who have been able to get sex change drugs and surgeries on the American taxpayer dime. Look, I'm sorry. You go to prison, you do something bad, that's it. You can get psychological help. They have counselors. They have all kinds of stuff. But you're talking about insanely expensive surgeries at my taxpayer expense, and you're in there for killing somebody, robbing somebody, doing some nefarious crime. No, it stops at a bed and 3 squares a day, and that's it. That's our responsibility to those folks. So it's really wild. But on the plus side, let's talk about a positive here. So those are crazy stats. It's positive that Trump is doing something about it. But Donald Trump, he's bringing back some 8,000 of the service members who were let go because of the COVID vaccine. So he has reinstated over 8,000 members of the military who were discharged for not taking the COVID-19 vaccine and is going to be providing full back pay. Guys, this is a lot of money. The back pay is a lot of money. There's folks that, you'd think I could look up the pay tables, but if you're an E6 or an E7, you're making good money. You're talking about over 4 years or 3 years, however long it's been. You're talking about 6 figures, like a good 6-figure paycheck. And so according to Fox News, a fact sheet from the White House obtained by the outlet stated, quote, "The executive order directs the Secretary of Defense to reinstate all members of the military, active and reserve, who were discharged for refusing the COVID vaccine and who requested to be reinstated." Now, the question is how many of these are actually going to come back? So he's saying he'll reinstate them, but this becomes a voluntary thing. If you're in I would feel, honestly, if I had been booted out for that, I was at the front end of that, and I refused to take the COVID vaccine, and I wasn't booted out. I was one of the lucky ones. Praise the Lord for that. But if I had been booted out because of that, would I even be interested in coming back in? I mean, would you? Let me know in the comments if you guys would be interested in coming back in after having been booted out for something like that. I don't know. I don't think I would. I think I'd be tired of it. I'd be on to after this many years, I'd be on to my next career. And is there some kind of stigma amongst the left-wing folks in the unit? There's not going to be that many. I mean, there's not that many left-wing folks, but there are quite a few of them in leadership positions, and I know that from experience. Some very left-wing folks. So I don't know. What do you guys think? That was my question. I think I asked it up front, but for the folks that are on now, do you think that transgender folks should be allowed to serve in the U.S. military? Should they be in special capacity in a different, non-combat arms, combat service support or something like that? I'd love to know what you guys think about it. So, Tom Homan, this is interesting. The border stuff is heating up big time. Like it's really getting wild, and we're going to talk about a couple of the things going on. Oop, I just lost my place in my notes here. Okay, so Tom Homan, who this guy's a beast. In a good way. This guy's awesome. He was in Chicago with Dr. Phil. I saw the video of that. I didn't pull it up for this episode, but he was there, as the ICE agents are arresting folks and arresting these illegal immigrants. In one place, they nabbed like 50 Trinidad Aragua gang members. They were drugs and guns and all this stuff with them. They are just going scorched earth. And he was in an interview with, I think it was CBS or CNN. I forget who. And the lady was shocked. Are there going to be flights like this leaving every day with immigrants? And what does he say? Yeah, every day. Every day. We're going to be sending flights out every day. And I hope it gets to the point, in particular with these violent criminals, that it gets to the point where they're like, okay, we need the Air National Guard to come in and help us out. But anyway, the board, so he demands an apology from the Illinois governor for spreading grade school ICE raid hoax. This is underhanded. So Tom Homan demanded an apology from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Public Schools CEO Pedro Martinez after they made false claims that ICE agents showed up at a school to detain illegal immigrant children. After Martinez made the false claim about the ICE agent, Governor Pritzker posted to X, after a week of Republicans sowing fear and chaos, the first reports of raids in Chicago are at an elementary school targeting children and separating families in a cruel and un-American, is cruel and un-American. There's no floor to how low that they will go. And I watch these folks online, and I'm sure you guys see it too. But it's anything they can do to vilify the men and women of ICE, of Border Patrol, who I have come down hard on those people in my podcast, because for 4 years under the Biden administration, they were culpable in some of this. They could have said no. Unlawful, unethical, or illegal orders are not meant to be followed, and they were following them. Now they have strong leadership and they're going along with it, but it says for some of these folks, their pension is more important to them than the safety and security of America. They were just going along to get along, and I have a problem with that. Now, Tom Homan can get him knocked back into shape, fine, but nonetheless, this is the way that they are pitching this. Tom Homan said it. He said it in his interview, his first interview, I believe, once he had actually been, gotten the swipe of the pen, is that we're going to see videos and photos of crying women and crying children. Well, what happened a couple days later? I played it in one of my episodes. There was a video of a woman, looked obviously staged, wailing at the southern border wall. Oh, I'm not going to be able to get in. I had a 1 o'clock appointment and the CBP One app is already shut down. And this is the psyop that they are going to play on us for the next 4 years as we deport one of their largest voting bases. Their bases being the left. This was part of it. But it's going to intensify. It's going to intensify, and we're seeing it in London. I don't know if you guys saw this, and I'm going to bring this back to the U.S. here in just a second. But in London, there is some wild, wild stuff going on. This is some coverage from London of the protests. So they were blocking roads. They're doing their, these are Muslims, Shia Muslims. And they're doing their prayers and they're doing all this stuff. They are in a lot of places asking to go ahead and let them institute Sharia law. In some cases in the UK, there are places where Sharia law is allowed. And this is what Tom Homan is trying to prevent. Agree with it or not, this is what he's trying to prevent. And the response that we're getting here in America now, this was happening just, I think this one was from today. No, this one was from yesterday, but this is down in Dallas, Texas. Protests are already starting. Mexican folks, there's some Palestinian flags. There's always Palestinian flags in any left-wing protest. And they're angry about the people being deported. The people who broke the laws coming here to America, they're mad about it. And not surprised that they are. And there's more of them. I could probably pull up 100 videos of folks down there in Texas. In fact, here's another one with a lot more stuff. That I got to show you the Palestinian flags. You got to see that because here we go. I don't think that one has. Well, maybe it does. Those are all Mexican flags. Now, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but it wasn't the Colombian president, the president of Colombia, who tried to get in a contest with Donald Trump online, and Trump said, "All right, fine, I'm going to slap a 25% tariff on everything coming out of Colombia." And the president of Colombia turned around and sent his private jet and said, "Okay, fine, I'll move some illegals with the presidential jet." He was loading them up and sending them out. No, can't handle those profits or those tariffs. Let me make sure I got the right clip here. But as we're dealing with the protests, as we're dealing with the left and their psyop and their media operation that's going to be relentless for the next 4 years while we try to deport these people, down at the southern border also, suspected cartel gunmen have been begun firing at Border Patrol agents in Fronton, Texas. Per Fox's Bill Milligan, I don't even know how to say his name. The cartels were in the process of smuggling illegals across the river. This is why Trump designated the cartel got it. He says it's time for the military to use lethal force. If they're fired upon, I think that is, it's a terrorist organization. I think that is warranted and justified for self-preservation. I don't think we need to be getting into massive skirmishes down there. But we're going to see more and more of this as they're losing tons and tons, billions of dollars that they are going to lose. Well, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars off this human trafficking. They're going to start getting ticked off. They're going to be really close. Like it's going to get dicey. It's going to get really dicey. And so my pointer, if there's anybody from Texas that happens to be watching right now, be prepared for false flag attacks. And this is not just for Texas. This is for everybody. So false flag attacks, if you're in Texas in particular, around these gatherings, be alert with your head on a swivel all the time. When you're out and about and you're in a contentious area of Texas near the southern border, just keep your head on a swivel because there's going to be angry, not just immigrants, but Antifa and people that support this mass immigration that's been going on for the past 4 years. Be armed and trained on how to use that whatever weapon you happen to have, whatever your device of choice is, and then understand your state laws on stand your ground and self-defense. These could be absolutely life-saving things because unfortunately you live in an area, if you're in Texas, you live in an area that is insanely contentious. It's political. And there's, folks like George Soros who was more than happy and Democrats who were more than happy to pay to bail out people in Chicago and Minneapolis and all these in Seattle and Portland, cities that were being burned to the ground. They'd burn to the ground for that reason. They'll burn it to the ground for another reason. And these violent Antifa thugs that are going to be out there, you just got to keep your head on a swivel for them. Now, as part of their propaganda, this one was really funny. I actually got a kick out of this one. New York Times was forced to admit that unborn are children in an attempt to fearmonger over Trump's immigration reform. So the way they said this was undocumented women ask, will my unborn child be a citizen? It's like, excuse me, your unborn child? According to the left, oh, my dog's barking at me. This is live. You can tell this is live. But they're forced to tell their unborn tell the media that their unborn children are actually children and not just a fetus or a zygote or whatever, innocuous term they want to call them. I thought it was hilarious. The Times has long been a proponent of the idea that unborn children are not babies, but clumps of cells, abortion fodder, nothing worth considering. The article discusses a woman who is undocumented and just a few months into her pregnancy and faces the prospect that her child will not be able to secure the Times writes, will not be able to secure. I think that's a typo in that one, or I read it wrong. But they're fine changing the narrative. They're fine changing the language when it suits them best. Wow. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, and this was from Thomas Massey, and I go 50-50 on Thomas Massey. No, I go 70-30 on Thomas Massey. He's a great congressman, and he's actually cares about what's going on up there on the Hill. And so from a policy standpoint, I'd probably go 70-30 on him. But when it comes to supporting him and, his honesty, I back him 100%. But let's listen to this. This is about the pipe bomber, the alleged pipe bomber, in relation or in conjunction to January 6th. Check this out.
Capitol Police.
Correct. Today.
You recently met with Capitol Police.
Correct. Today.
And what did you learn in that meeting?
I learned that backpack guy, January 6th backpack guy, not to be confused with January 5th backpack person, backpack guy was a non-uniform, plainclothes police officer in the employ of the Capitol Hill Police.
The person who found the pipe bomb, the person who, D'Antuono, who was leading the investigation, say, oh yeah, the person who found it, it'd be investigation 101, that they would be a suspect initially until ruled out. You're saying that person was an undercover, plainclothes Capitol Police officer, and the Capitol Police confirmed that to you today?
They confirmed that to me today, yes. So, by the way,
what does that mean to you?
Well, it heightens some of my concerns and reduces some of the other concerns. Okay, one of the concerns that's heightened was, trying to give the Secret Service and the Metro Police Department the benefit of the doubt when they took 4 minutes. They finished their lunch before they went and dealt with this pipe bomb. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt and think that, well, if it's just some random passerby and he said, hey, there's something shiny over there, could be a lawn sprinkler, not sure, maybe want to check it out. But that's not what it was. It was a person who was, they say, again, when I relate this to you, I'm relating what the Capitol Police have told me. They say it was a Capitol Police officer who found this bomb and that he told them it was a bomb. He radioed it in, said, We've got the device. We found another device. Remember, here's the other just amazing timing, is that the first pipe bomb, the one at the Capitol Hill Club, now they call it the RNC pipe bomb, but they really should be calling it the Capitol Hill pipe bomb. I mean, the two buildings are next to each other, but it was like...
The Capitol Hill Club, which is an entity where Republican members of Congress socialize and fundraise.
Right. The reason I'm making that distinction is Darren Beatty, who's done amazing work on this. Okay, he's the guy who's said, hey, you should be asking some of these questions. And I said, you know what, you're right. I will be asking those questions. He points out that the RNC-DNC narrative was made up after the fact. It was really the Capitol Hill Club DNC narrative that they should be talking about, but it just sounds a lot better that, oh, we knew to go look at the DNC once we found one at the RNC.
Interesting.
Well, if you thought somebody was going to blow up the RNC, and don't they hate Republicans? Why would they also want to blow up? Anyways, so, they come down, this plainclothes police officer who had been in the vicinity of that one, they had just found that. The timing is remarkable because it was found 5 minutes before the breach of the bicycle racks at the perimeter of the Capitol. Just a miraculous timing that, would have provided exactly the right timing to distract. After sitting in an alley for 17 hours, found by somebody who says she was going to go do her laundry. Okay, then they respond to that, they secure the area, and 15 minutes later, they find this other bomb. Like, what miraculous timing.
Well, I definitely don't believe that the Capitol Police would purposefully go and set a bomb anywhere that could potentially blow up and do anyone harm. I am not there that they would do something like that. However, you seem to point out in questioning with the ATF director that this wasn't an operational bomb that was going to blow up and hurt anybody. Remember that?
Right. The assistant director in charge, he went on TV and said these were operable bombs, and offered a reward, put out a message that they played on TV, and so in the beginning of my transcribed interview with him, he still maintained that they were operable.
Well, hold on. We're going to get the ATF director's take on that questioning from Congressman Massey. Take a listen.
Also, I see that you're cooperating with the FBI, the ATF is, on the January 6th pipe bomb investigation. What can you tell us about how that's going?
Obviously, that's a significant matter. It is an ongoing criminal investigation, and so I'm not going to comment on an ongoing criminal investigation.
Were those pipe bombs operable?
Again,
The ATF is the expert.
Again, it's an ongoing criminal investigation, and under long-standing policy, I cannot comment.
And we've just had a whole committee for 2 years that investigated ongoing investigations, so I'm not accepting that answer from you. We need to know these things. Do you know how the pipe bomb was discovered at the DNC? We've been told how it was discovered at the RNC, and according to a press release from the FBI, you're working with them on this investigation.
Respectfully, I understand your disagreement, but I cannot comment because it is an ongoing criminal investigation.
Okay. I'm going to stop it on that piece. This is what this has divulged over time is that the whole January 6th narrative. We know that the January 6th committee, they got their pardons from Joe Biden. Why do you need a pardon? Well, there's already talk of them pulling the January 6th committee in front of Congress, making them testify under oath, because once you accept a pardon, which some of them didn't, apparently, but once you accept a pardon, you give up your Fifth Amendment right. There is no self-incrimination, so when you go to testify, you can no longer plead the Fifth because you've already accepted a guilty plea for something in order to be pardoned. That's how the pardon process works. So that's going to be divulged. More of that. I'm very interested to find out what they were pardoned for, if they'll be able to get a straight answer, or are we going to hear more of this type stuff where it's ongoing investigation, that sort of thing. Now, they're outside of the federal government, so they're not part, most of them now are, they're not part of any sort of ongoing investigation. So this should be, we should start getting some information. We'll see if they're able to play the political cat and mouse, but I think that we're owed that answer. If people who aggressively went after Donald Trump, went after other people, a Justice Department who aggressively went after Donald Trump supporters and people like that, we need answers. And now that we've got the numbers to a certain degree, other than Susan Collins and the like, and the likes of her, that'll be, kind of our one of our holdups, I would say, in getting answers. But I hope we find out more. But the whole pipe bomb story, this has gotten absolutely ludicrous. And so now they're admitting that the person, if you remember, the one they're talking about is the one who went over, found it, went over and talked to the police officers who were parked, 20 yards away, walked off, and those guys sat there, finished their lunch, and then walked around as civilians were passing back and forth. It's a weird set of circumstances, but that guy, the one who walked to them, was a Capitol Police officer. This is, I can't wait to get some answers. I hope we can get some transparency one of these days. One of these days, maybe we will. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for being here, because that's all I've got for tonight. I truly appreciate it. Make sure, if you haven't done so, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit that notification bell, leave some comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. God bless you. God bless America. Have a great evening.